Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be how to study for your final exams. I know that if you're in university or college that your finals may be over by now, but for those of you who are in high school or still have finals left in May and June, I have so many amazing tips for you guys to help you be prepared for your exams. So I really hope that they do help you, and let's just get right on into today's video. The first thing that I recommend doing if you're studying for finals is to create a study schedule. So I have one of mine here from last semester's finals, just so I can kind of show you guys how I set it all up. So what I did is I listed out every day that I had to study until the exam. Hopefully you have lots of time and you're starting in advance. And I basically just knew everything that I needed to cover, and I basically divided it based on how big each section was and gave a certain amount of days to that section, depending again on how big it was and how much time that I had. And then basically then I just further divided each day into more specific things. So for example, on one day I wrote read through lessons 3 and 4 and review the following the assignments for those lessons, memorize 3 of my equations on my equation sheet, and study the Unit A Quizlet for 15 minutes. So that's just an example of one of the days that I had on my study schedule. Of course, you can customize it based on whatever final that you are writing. The reason why I recommend to make a study schedule is it will make sure that you don't leave out any information because you have time to do all of it, so you're not cramming it the night before because you make sure that you know everything. And the other reason why it's so great is it's really motivating, at least for me it was, because I really didn't want to fall behind on my study schedule. These next 2 things are things that you should definitely do before you start studying as well, just like the study schedule was. The first thing is to figure out what the style of your exam is going to be. So if it's going to be an essay question, if it is going to be multiple choice, short answer, etc. That way it'll really change how you study. If it's multiple choice, you're really going to want to know specific details, vocab words, things like that. And if it is a essay question, you're going to want the big picture ideas so that you can write a really good essay, and make sure that you know a lot of details that you can throw into there, but mainly knowing the big picture of what you studied in that course. And next, I recommend basically figuring out what works best for you for that subject. So for example, if it is a math exam, I would recommend doing a lot of practice problems if you find that that works best for you. And biology, for me, I write a lot of notes. So basically over the years you should have kind of figured out what works best for you for each subject, and if you haven't yet, just kind of experiment a little bit. Think of how you studied for your unit tests throughout the year and what worked and what didn't work for you. So this might take a little bit of time to figure out, but I do recommend figuring out how you study best for each one of your classes, because it'll really help speed the process along and make sure you don't waste any time when you are studying. Learning the vocabulary is a super important step, and a lot of people leave it out for certain subjects like math or something, and I know there's probably not a lot of vocabulary for math, but make sure you do go over practice problems, and then if you notice that there's a word in there that they're using that you don't know, make sure you learn as many math vocabulary words as you can. Same with all of your other subjects. You can make flashcards or use the app Quizlet to help you out, and then that way you can just make sure you're studying them all the time on the go, because even if your test isn't having specific questions on vocabulary words, it'll really help you. If you need to write an essay, you can impress your teacher by throwing in some vocabulary words. And if it's multiple choice, half the time the answers will be vocabulary words, or they'll throw them into the question to make sure that you don't know what the question's saying. So even if you do know what the topic is and you would know how to answer that question, you just don't know what that word means, and then you'll get it wrong. So make sure that you know the vocabulary words. So when you're actually studying now, I really recommend going through your study guide that you were given by your teacher, and all the key concepts on there, write lots of notes for them. Even if you think you know what something is, go through your textbook again and write really detailed notes on them. And I recommend writing these notes out instead of typing them, because when you write them out, it's going to stick in your mind way better, and as opposed to typing, and it will just help you memorize these facts. So yeah, go through all the points on your study guide, write handwritten notes for them, and make sure that they are really detailed, and that'll help you a lot later on in your study. Once you have these notes on everything, including the things you know really well, acknowledge the things that you know really well and maybe the things that you don't know as well, and then really spend a lot of your time on the things that maybe you don't know as well, and really try to get that knowledge down as opposed to spending all of your time on the things that you do know really well. And that's not to say don't review the things that you do know. You should definitely continue to review them, but don't spend all your time on that. Make sure to spend the majority of your time, like 80%, on the things that you don't know as well, and maybe about 20% making sure that you remember the things that you do know. Once you have all of your notes handwritten, and if you are still struggling to remember certain things and you're still struggling to understand them, what I recommend doing and what works really well for me is reading the things out loud. If I say the thing out loud 10, 15, 20 times, I'm not going to forget it. So if you are having difficulties, I recommend saying it out loud, and if it's something fairly long that you're trying to remember, say it out loud in chunks and just keep adding something on. For my psychology final this year, that's what I did. I really spent so much time like saying things out loud. I probably sounded ridiculous in my room while studying because I was literally just reading my book out loud over and over again, but it is a really effective technique. And if you don't have time to write a bunch of notes, and if you're kind of cramming, reading out loud will do just the same thing as writing down, at least for me. But if it doesn't work for you, don't do it. But if you are looking for something new to try to memorize, definitely give this a shot. Once you are studying and you're kind of in the groove of things and you've kind of got the main knowledge down, make sure you take practice tests. I wouldn't recommend doing this first thing because you're not going to know as much and you're going to feel discouraged and feel like you don't know anything. But once you've been studying for a while, take a bunch of practice tests, whether it's given by your teacher. I also recommend making your own practice tests based on problems that you've done in class, and go through and do these practice tests, and it will really help you understand what you need to work on, because sometimes you can really understand the content in the course but not know how to answer the questions that they're throwing at you. So make sure to go back and do old exams from earlier on in the year, going through assignments. It will really help you out and get you more prepared and confident for your exam. So again, once you've been studying for a while and you've kind of got a lot of information done, I would recommend meeting up with some friends and studying with them. And if there's things that they don't understand, I recommend actually explaining it to them. So not only will you be helping a friend out and being really nice to them and helping them, but you'll also be helping yourself, because explaining something out loud, like I said before, talking out loud is super helpful. So if you're explaining something out loud to them and then they're asking you questions on it, so you're answering questions on it, it will really help ingrain the information in your mind and you'll be way less likely to forget it. I know this may seem fairly obvious, but make sure to take lots of breaks, because if you don't take breaks, you're just going to be cramming and your brain is not going to retain any of the information that you are trying to learn. And lastly, if you are struggling to be motivated to study, I get that. So this is what I do to be motivated. A lot of people ask how I have the motivation to do things, and this is how. Picture yourself when you're done with that class. So picture yourself walking out of that exam and knowing that you're not going to have to do that class now for maybe not even ever again, for some of you, and you feel that good feeling of walking into that test confident and walking out confident, thinking that you aced it and getting your grade back and knowing that you did awesome. So that's just what I do. I would picture all of those things, and it really keeps me motivated to study. And the other thing I always ask myself, would I rather get a good grade or watch Netflix? And the answer is always get a good grade, because in the long run, that's going to make you feel better than a 20-minute Netflix show. So if you are struggling with motivation, I really hope that that helps you, because that is honestly what I do if I am struggling to start studying. So I really hope that all those tips were helpful for those of you who are going to be writing your exams. I'm sorry that I sound a little bit different in this video. I am kind of sick, which is why I didn't post a video last Friday, because I was not feeling good enough to film. So I do apologize if my voice was kind of annoying in this video. But anyway, I hope you guys all have a great day and you start studying for your finals if you have any coming up, and that these tips can offer you some help if you were struggling to get started. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye!